And he saw that Vasudeva was so much feeling separation. And this feeling of separation from the Lord draws the Lord to reveal himself to us. So he came all the way back and he saw this Vasudeva and he went to embrace him. Vasudeva said, no, no, Lord, don't touch me. I have leprosy. Lord Chaitanya embraced him. There was blood, there was pus, there was worms coming out of his body. And the Lord embraced him with affection. And as soon as he did that, Vasudeva was cured. His body became healthy, effulgent, and beautiful. And then he started to cry, and he offered a prayer. He quoted Sudama Vibra from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sudama was a very poor man, and he came to Krishna's beautiful palace in Dwarka, and Krishna embraced him. And when Krishna embraced him, Sudama said, "Who am I? Just a very fallen, insignificant, poor little Brahmin. And who are you, the husband of the goddess of fortune, the supreme absolute truth, the controller of all controllers, the Lord of the universe? And you embraced me with your arms." Vasudeva said, "My body was so abominable. I was banished from anywhere anybody was living because I was so contagious. My skin was rotting so bad that the odor, nobody could come anywhere near me. What to speak of all of the substances coming out? And you embraced me with love as your own child. My Lord, I am yours. But I have one worry. Now I'm cured, and everyone's going to see that Vasudeva got the special mercy of the Lord. I may become proud. I may start to think that I'm better than someone else. And if I have that type of false ego, then my devotion will be spoiled." And Lord Chaitanya said, "No need to worry. Just chant the names of Krishna. Just be an instrument of Krishna's compassion in whatever you do. And I will always protect you if you are sincere." Later on, Lord Chaitanya was traveling to Vrindavan. And on his way, he was going through a forest called Jarikanda. Now, 500 years ago, the forests of India, there were no roadways and everything. I'm going to divert again, with your permission. Back in 1971, I was living in a forest, in a mountain, just beyond Rishikesh in Himalayas. And I was living in a cave with a yogi. It was so beautiful. It took about an hour to walk back there from the town, and it was all beautiful forests with wild animals. There was leopards and elephants and wild boars and deers and snakes. But when you're in a cave, you're just looking down at all of them thinking, my neighbors. And once you get used to neighbors like that, you realize they're much easier to live with than human neighbors. That was actually my experience. At the beginning, it's a culture shock. But once you get used to it, it's very nice, very natural. Anyways, when I was writing this book, The Journey Home, I wanted to go back to that cave to just get the feeling of what it was like. And there was a paved road, part of a national highway, that went right up to the cave. Through the jungle. Anyways. And the cave was boarded off. And there was a sign saying, "No trespassing." Because the government forest department evicted the yogis. But if you want to hear the reason and that story, you'll have to divert me another time. Because we're going to get back to the Jarikhanda forest. In those days, there were wild animals. And Lord Chaitanya was traveling with one other very humble, gentle assistant. And Lord, he was intoxicated with the ecstasy of Radha's love. His arms were raised. He was chanting. Whether there was thousands of people around him or whether he was alone in the forest, he was so happy just chanting the names of God. And as he was going down this forest path, there was a man-eating Bengali tiger sleeping on the path. And Sri Chaitanya's assistant was praying that Lord Chaitanya wouldn't wake him up. Lord Chaitanya must have heard the prayer, because he went right up to the tiger, who was sound asleep, and he put his foot on the tiger's head and kicked him. And the tiger, he looked up, and the Lord said, "Chant the names of Hari." With so much compassion in his heart. Vidyavanaya sampani brahmani gavihastini suni chaiva supakecha pandita samadarshana. Real knowledge is to see the spiritual essence in everyone's heart, and therefore to see every living being with equal vision. Male, female, black, white, red, yellow, brown, whether they're of one religion or another religion or no religion, whether they're human or elephants or cows or dogs or cats or even tigers. My Gurudev Srila Prabhupada, he said, you can honor the love and love every soul in the heart of everyone, but if you're not Lord Chaitanya, don't embrace tigers. From a distance, show your love. But Lord Chaitanya kicked him. And with so much love for the soul of that tiger, he said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And because the power of his pure compassion for that soul and that tiger, it reached the tiger's heart. And the tiger lifted his paws, got up on his hind legs, and roared, "Krishna!" Sorry about that. Started weeping in ecstasy, dancing and chanting. He attained the perfection of life. What yogis, it takes them lifetimes of samadhi, he attained just by receiving the grace of God. Lord Chaitanya just go on chanting, "Krishna!" And he walked on. As the Lord was walking, this is a very interesting, very, very illuminating message to what I'm about to speak. This story, although it's a very simple story, it has given so much hope to me over the years. Because in the jungle, there are natural enemies. Tigers eat deer. So for the deer, the tiger is death personified. At the least expected moment, the tiger will pounce on the deer, rip its throat out, eat its flesh, and drink its blood. I'm sorry, Prasad's a little later. And so that's the way a deer sees a tiger. And what does the tiger see a deer? Something to kill and eat. So they're worst enemies. Lord Chaitanya was chanting the names of God along this footpath in the jungle, and he was so much attracting because of his love. What was attracting them? Because he loved them so much, they could feel his love. Love is the greatest power. It can transform people. Especially when it's from the soul and it touches the soul. So there was tiger after tiger after tiger on one side were following Lord Chaitanya. There were dozens of tigers just following wherever he would go. And on the other side of the footpath, dozens and dozens of deers were following him. They couldn't give up his company. Then Lord Chaitanya turned around and looked at all the tigers and all the deers, raised his hands and said, chant the names of Krishna and love each other. The tigers started chanting, the deer started chanting, and then a miracle happened. Each deer and tiger approached each other, and in pure, ecstatic love, they embraced. Each deer and tiger were embracing each other, and according to the scripture, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, they began to kiss each other. This is not about mundane romance. This is about spiritual love. They transcended all of their differences because their relationships were based on the higher principle of pleasing God. Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. All the disputes of this world, whether there are disputes among people, whether there are disputes among nations, whether disputes among religions, family members, disputes among any variety of things in this world. If we actually unite on a higher principle than all of these superficialities, there's unity and there's love. Srila Prabhupada, my Gurudev, told a story. Mahatma Gandhi got a fight with his wife, and he got so angry, he said, "Out from this house." So she left. So a little while later, he came outside and she saw her on the side of the road. He said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "Where am I going to go?" He smiled. He said, "Come back in, forget it." That's an interesting story, isn't it? Because Mahatma Gandhi's the father of peace and nonviolence. He was the inspiration of the Nobel Peace Laureate Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, and yet he's fighting with his wife. Now for Swamis, this is a very encouraging story, actually. Because in marriage, no one is exempt. What each of you tell me, you probably think nobody else knows. I don't tell anybody what you tell me, but what I do know is everybody else tells me the same thing. But Srila Prabhupada said that this is the solution. These two words, forget it. Whatever differences, they're just not important. What's really important is the higher principle, the spiritual principle. And in this way, to the extent that Lord Chaitanya had the deer and the tigers serving each other with ecstatic love, embracing, kissing, and dancing as they were chanting the holy name. And Lord Chaitanya just left them in their loving relationships with each other. And then he came to a pond of water, and there was a herd of wild elephants. But I'll save that story till next time, or whatever. But the principle of all these beautiful narrations which the Holy Scriptures are giving us, and the acharyas have preserved and spoken in assemblies like this for centuries, is the incredible opportunity we all have to access the ultimate wealth, the ultimate fulfillment, which is within each and every one of our hearts. And the purpose of yoga, the purpose of spirituality, the purpose of religion is not just to create some sectarian fraternity of people. It's to access that spiritual essence that is the potential within all of us to taste real love, real happiness, and to change the world. And one of the highest, most recommended ways of doing so is satsang, coming together to hear stories that inspire us to unite on these higher principles of devotion. I thank you very, very much.